Seems my video didn't properly. Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Anyway, that's fine. I lowered the volume of the dialogue so I can talk about Cal. Now I use this dragonfly as a perfect background.
Enough! 10 more patrons.
So, here's my thing about Cal. That this is just my viewpoint, truth be told. My viewpoint. Oh my god, that's really close. Ooh, the anger in his eyes is. Hold on. Hold on a minute. This is honestly very relevant to what I'm talking about, funny enough. This is very relevant to what I want to talk about. Let me just do this real quick. So about Cal, he's an interesting type of Jedi, and as I'm talking about him, I'm going to be using the original EU because I genuinely believe, but it was when it comes to the original EU, when it comes to illustrating and narrating a lot of like Force users, they do a much better job than Canon does. Canon just feels a little too fucking safe, and even when it has good moments, they don't exactly do a great job of showcasing that. For a great example of what I mean, Darth Vader when he fought that very forgettable Battle Master in one of the comics when Disney took over and they were trying to start a new comic series with Darth Vader. There is a Battle Master. I don't remember his name. I don't care to remember. I just know he had like a grayish tone, supposed to be super powerful and whatnot. And this is before Vader got his new lightsaber. That fight is the great example I'm talking about because multiple fights in a lot of like current comics, they do this weird thing where they flanderize him to the point where he is a tragic figure. Like they can't let him win, and when he does let him win, he's too beat up. It's like my thing with Vader is you can beat him up and get him all damaged and stuff like that, but still make him a threat. Still make him a threat. And I think a lot of like canon stuff with Darth Vader and everything like that that came in more recent years up until this year and everything like that. They don't do a good job of showcasing and how threatening Vader is. And the only time Vader actually felt threatening in the new stuff that came up from Star Wars is Rogue One, but again, that's more of a cameo. Apparently, he's very terrifying in Outlaws, even though nobody cares about Outlaws. He's weirdly terrifying in Star Wars Galaxy Adventures. I think it's like an animated Star Wars series. The list goes on and on and on. And then you have these fucking games where he's a legit more terrifying. But at the same time, Vader is not as terrifying as he should be, I feel like. At least that's what I believe. He's not as terrifying as he should be. It doesn't help that a lot of comics from the new canon stuff, they make him a little too shiny. And it's just like glossy. It doesn't work. It just seems like a good excuse to make Vader more tragic than he is and just milk the living hell out of him because he's such a popular, beloved villain and such. And I'm just like, stop, please. That's enough. We get it. I love Vader, but come on, let's stop, please. Anyways, I have a particular understanding about a lot of Force users due to a lot of media I've consumed. I've read a lot of comics regarding Star Wars, both good and bad. I've been reading the Darth Vader trilogy. I'm almost done with it because I haven't really had the time to actually read them or have the willingness to read it, which oddly enough, that plays into my points about Cal. Played a lot of Star Wars games, watched a lot of things regarding Star Wars, movies, shows, whatever. My first exposure to Star Wars was the prequels growing up. Granted, that was an accidental thing because my first exposure to the prequels is when I saw Darth Maul, and everything kind of went downhill from there because I had a major crush on that motherfucker. I still love Maul to that such a degree. He's such a great character, and I love his appeal and everything. Why is that relevant? Well, it's simple. I don't think that Jedi are all purely good. I don't see them as strictly corrupt. I don't see them as strictly wrong. I don't see them as strictly flawed. I see a lot of Jedi as many things because there's so many Jedi. There's so many different kinds of Jedi that's ridiculous. Like, you can't tell me that Shaak Ti and Aayla Secura are the exact same Jedi. One's a Togruta woman who has a very motherly instincts more often than not. Not saying that Aayla Secura doesn't have that, but it's just I see that more with Shaak Ti more often than not. And their degree of power is very different too. Like, their understanding, their affinity to the Force is very different. Their experiences are very different, and that's what molds them to the Jedi Master they are now. I don't remember if Aayla Secura is a Jedi Master or a Jedi Knight. Either way, they're very well respected. And honestly, they went out in very brutal ways. Granted, Shaak Ti died in multiple ways, either by Grievous or Anakin killing her. If you go by Force Unleashed, she is defeated by Galen Merrick, who fell into the Sarlacc pit on Felucia and was devoured and exploded with her energy. That's another thing. When Jedi who are powerful enough in the Force die, they release a big explosion of power. Even Sith do that. Anyways. There's a lot of interesting dark side users like Dark Jedi, Sith, or just people who are just using the dark side. You have people like Lana Beniko, who's a Sith, but very pragmatic. She's like a Dark Kenobi of the Star Wars Old Republic. And I love her. And you have people like Jason Wilson, who is Sith, but not a master because she's more of a, depending on what your character does with her, she's just more of a loyal dark side user who just gets up and hurting people, which plays into, again, when I'm talk about Cal later. Anyways, in fact, let me just... Cal is an interesting case. Using the inspiration that I consider from many Jedi of the past, as well as Sith and Dark Jedi and the like, he unfortunately, according to a lot of people on the YouTube community, is considered someone who's fallen to the dark side, or he's just a Sith. Whatever. He's no longer a Jedi. I personally think that is too easy to claim.
You're still chained by the past.
This fight with Dagon is especially interesting. Dark Jedi who failed because he's obsessed with Tanalorr. Thinking it would help ensure that the Jedi would win whatever threat was coming their way. Makes sense, got it.
I could annihilate.
Anyways,
You're just
my personal opinions about Cal is that I don't think he's less of a Jedi because he's using the dark side. A lot of people would say so, but I disagree. There's a lot of Jedi who use darker powers and haven't fallen. There's a lot that do that. They're still themselves, and here's the thing. They're still themselves. I think something that is being used against Cal in a very unfair way is that just because he's using the dark side, you should not consider him a Jedi anymore. And I think that's genuinely unfair because you're really overly simplifying how Star Wars is. At least that's what I think. If Cal is genuinely consumed by the dark side, then you can make that point. But if he's just afraid and occasionally use it because he's so overcome with pain and grief and such, I think that's too easy to say that he's fallen. Yes, the dark side is easier, more seductive. It gives you a lot of power for a short period of time. That makes sense. And if you commit to the dark side and become a full-on Sith, or more or less a demon, because that's what Sith are, they're demons, then that constant all-powerful thing that you have, that whole thing, the dark side, is a constant thing. Darth Vader's a great example of such. He was never a Jedi, he was a Sith, and he's constantly powerful because he's constantly using the dark side. Same with Xana, same with Darth Tenebrous and Plagueis, even though Tenebrous is more of a scientist, but he's not relevant to what I'm talking about right now. I love the guy, but he's not relevant to what I'm talking about right now. Anyways, Cal is not fallen. I don't think he is. I just simply think he's scared based on what I've seen. He's genuinely afraid. Now, why do I think this? It's simple. Because in the first game, he's a lot like your very typical Jedi. And when I say typical Jedi, I don't mean the arrogant and out-of-touch Jedi like we see in the prequels. And find out he's around that time. Sorry, I'm getting sick. Around this point, I'm getting really sick. Like, it's hard to talk and such. The Jedi got too involved with politics and whatnot. Way too involved. And they tried to appease those politics and the people of these political, like, factors. They tried to appease the Republic and not adhere to their actual connection to the Force. That is who they're connected to. They're not connected to people, which is ironic. They're supposed to be connected with the people, but they try to adhere to the people by adhering to the Republic. And that's one of their greatest failings. They're trying to cover their asses rather than actually doing things that enact justice, rather than doing things that enact actual, peace. They're fighting one side of the war instead of trying to mediate the war. Both sides. If Jedi were truly Jedi, they would acknowledge that the Separatists were trying to fight for freedom and peace and things of that nature. And the Republic is something that should be encouraging that. If the Jedi were truly Jedi, they would actually go out there and help stop slavery more often than not. But as Shmi Skywalker says, Anakin's mom, the Republic does not exist out there. It doesn't exist in many areas, and that's the unfortunate reality of the Jedi. Good thing Cal was not involved too much to be plagued by that shit, And if anything, he's just plagued by the trauma of Order 66. He's not aware of the darkness that the Jedi have succumbed themselves to. That's why this whole conversation with Terra Malicos is so fascinating, because it's true. They fell long before the Purge. The Purge was just a culmination of their failings. I know it sounds like I'm rambling because I'm not good with illustrating my point. But here's my thing. If Cal truly fell, why is he still able to have good connection with the people around him? He has Marin, he has Kata that's around him, and he has the guide of Seer, who's unfortunately dead around this point, as well as the teachings of Gerald to Paul. He also has the teachings of other Jedi who came before him. Before I continue, the teachings of the Jedi are not wrong. It's the practitioners of the teachings, more often than not, that are wrong. And Cal, I genuinely believe he tries to adhere to the actual teachings of the Jedi. That's how he was in the first game. Trying to bring about compassion and bring about change, to bring about actual order. If Jedi are all about peacekeepers and things like that, they need to be peacekeepers. Connect with the people around them. And that's what Cal does in the first game. He connects with people that he comes across. Sure, in the beginning, when he meets Marin, he's very standoffish because he doesn't like being attacked so often. But it's like, back off. If you attack me again, I will strike you down. But he remembers his Jedi teachings later, and it's just like, okay. And what's interesting is Marin didn't attack him later. So when she didn't attack him, he goes back on his actual teaching, and it's just like allowing her to talk, allowing her to actually communicate, allowing her to explain herself. But what's interesting is he actually found the truth. Terra Malicos was manipulating her, and he explained that Jedi are not... Okay. Obviously, if you play the fucking game or watch the cutscenes, you know what I'm talking about. Just because you have a lightsaber doesn't automatically mean you're a Jedi. Grievous killed the Night Sisters. That doesn't mean he's a Jedi. He's just a cyborg that hates the Jedi, and he collects lightsabers of Jedi that he's killed. That's what he does. That is what he does. And Marin understood. And furthermore, Cal keeps connecting with people throughout Fallen Order, the novels, and Jedi Survivor. I have not read the novels, but based on what I understand from videos, he connects with the people. He provides a better safe haven when people are in danger and trouble. Gives them opportunities. Gives them more things to do than just be stranded in areas and things like that. And if they need help, he helps them. If he has the means to help them, he'll do it. That is more Jedi-like than a lot of Jedi during the prequel era. And yes, this whole thing with Dagon, and speaking of Dagon...
You will not stop me. How pathetic.
Yeah, I just thought I'd let that play because it's oddly relevant to what I'm talking about. This entire fight, Dagon is using very powerful hallucinations and things like that to manipulate the fight and manipulate you and trick you and make you easier to beat, easier to kill, and things of that nature. Cal is a survivor. That's the whole point of the fucking game. And as a survivor, he's a very fascinating survivor. He actually bonds and connects with a lot of the people that he comes across. This whole thing with Dagon, as much as antagonistic, he's still bonding with Dagon. He still bonds with Bode. I'm going to talk about Bode later, but in the following video, if this video doesn't get to more of my points, I might make a second video because why not? He still bonds further with Marin. They have a fucking kiss at a later point in this game. And they kiss again later. He bonds with Grease. He bonded with Cedar. He bonds with a lot of people. Those bonds are precious to him, as they should for a Jedi. They should be precious to him. And that's what they are. Why else would he be trying to fight a lot of like Imperial bases and whatnot during the beginning of the game? He's doing it by himself because, well, he's got to do it. He can't protect those he cares for or anything like that. If the Empire is still in power. The problem is he can't do it by himself. And I get that's the lesson he's learning. But I still don't think he's fallen. It's too easy to say that. Yes, he feared becoming Dagon because they're very similar. But my thing is this. That's very surface level. Because Dagon's reasons for falling were not the same reason for why Cal was going to fall. He suffered a lot more craziness than Dagon, and he's still holding a good sense of himself. That's the difference. Sure, we don't know much about Dagon Gera. I get that. But here's the thing. What we do know is that all he did is believe that the Jedi betrayed him, and he killed Jedi to get where he is. Tried to save Tanalorr because of a certain invasion and whatnot. And the Jedi at the time didn't want to do that. His obsession brought his own undoing. Cal is not obsessed. He's just very, very stubborn and determined to try and stop the Empire and protect his loved ones. And Marin even calls him out on that. When I say calls him out, I'm saying she confirms that. And if he does fall, she's going to help him and make sure he does not fall. So when he does meet the guy who's behind this whole thing with Bode, Denvin, I think his name was, he's very angry. He's very much in pain, absolutely. But did he fall? No, I don't think he fell. He's just simply angry. It's okay to be angry. As much as I agree that just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good. That is true. That is very true. But let's not go to the extreme, basically. Let's not act like, oh, Cal lost his way because he gave into the dark side. He's tapping into it, sure, and he's very much understandingly angry and things like that. But did he fall? No. Again, too easy. And part of the reason why I believe that is this is very, very dark times. You got to keep certain eras into consideration. The Old Republic, Jedi were a lot more extreme and even did things that Sith would look at you and discuss with. Like, they did some terrible things in the Old Republic era and even before then. High Republic, we don't really know much about the High Republic, at least I don't. But this is during the time after the Jedi Purge, after the era with Anakin. He's going to have to adapt to the fucking surroundings that he's in. He has to adapt. He has to make do with the situation and use it against the enemy. And that's the thing he does with Dagon Gera. All these hallucinations like that, he's using them against him. At least he does later. Let me put it like this. Is Jaina Solo Jaina Solo, yes, I'm talking about her. Is she less of a Jedi because she was forced to kill her own brother? Is she less of a Jedi because she uses a bit of the dark side to use against dark side users and achieve victory without being consumed by it? That's really what Fapad is. She knows Fapad. I mean, shit. What about Mace Windu? I don't like Mace Windu personally for like various reasons. But is he less of a Jedi for just simply using the dark side? No. And that's my thing. It's how they're used. It's how the Force is being used that considers someone that's fallen. Sure, you can make a case for how Cal uses the dark side against a bunch of Imperials, but Imperials, more often than not, are considered very, very, very fucking evil. Sure, in other parts of the world, like not part of the world, in parts of the Star Wars lore, both in canon and original EU, a lot of them are doing things just because it's a fucking job or doing it to protect their families. It's a very morally gray situation when it comes to a lot of stuff in Star Wars. But more often than not, the Empire is evil. They're objectively evil more often than not. To the common person, maybe not. But people that actually know the darker stuff that the Empire does, especially with the slavery, and you have the original EU with the Pro-Human Act that Palpatine illustrated. Because, people didn't like aliens. Well, okay. I say aliens loosely because everybody is an alien in Star Wars to each other. Someone that's born on Dathomir is an alien to someone that's born on Felucia. Coruscant, people on Coruscant is technically an alien to someone who's born on Droman Kos. You get what I'm saying? Aliens is too easy of a term to claim. So yeah. What was I saying? Oh yeah. How he kills a lot of the fucking Imperials, very brutal, I'll admit. But a lot of them are very sadistic and willing to destroy Jedi in brutal ways themselves. Not saying it makes it right, but it's just... You get what I'm saying? It's too easy to say he's fallen. Too easy. Way too easy. At least I think so. Way too easy. You can refute my points all you want, but I just think that Cal is more of a fascinating Jedi, more of a Jedi than many that came before him. Because of the fact that he's not attached to so many politics, because he has a sense of himself. He's aware of how afraid he is. He's aware of how angry he is. He's aware of how much pain he is in. And if Cal finds the strength to pull himself away, then he's an even better Jedi at that point. And that's the beauty of Star Wars. You can tap into the darkness and still be a Jedi. Just for a little while. Just don't be consumed by it. Dark Jedi are only fucking Dark Jedi because they're deeply consumed by darkness. They only become Sith when they have a particular master teaching them the ways of the Sith, and they just shatter everything that makes them truly unique about themselves. All they have is rage or wrath or sorrow, depending on the Sith and what they are tied to. That is it. They are demons. A Dark Jedi is not a demon. Cal is not a demon, and he's not a Dark Jedi. And that's the beauty of him.
Cannot fathom doubt. There is nothing. You demand inevitable. Is that it? Buddy. Perish. This will be painful. I'm simply faster.
How did I miss?
How does it feel to know that you're about to die? That your life meant nothing? Don't resist. You can't hide from me. Ah, yes. I feel it. Loss. Suffering. Shame. Anger. There's immense power in such emotions, but you were too weak. And now it's too late.
Shuttles are leaving. I will not return. You're lost. You've strayed from the path. And you are no Jedi.
That's why, right there, I believe, saying that Cal has fallen is way too easy. It's way too easy. And regardless of what it may seem like, I don't think he's fallen that much. I just think he's in a lot of pain. He's really afraid. And he needs help. And he knows that he needs help. And he has help. They're going to help him. Sure, you can make the argument that you could be both be fallen and need help in the dimension, but I don't think that's the case for Cal. I think people in other parts of the community, when it comes to like Cal and things like that, have given up too easy on him. But I have not. And one of the main reasons why is, well, this is the last thing I'll say. The fascinating thing about Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order and things like that is that you don't need the full context of why or how things are to be. Like, I understood that Seer is now training and teaching and everything like that when it comes to Cal being a Jedi. They didn't need to say it. It's just implied based on their shift in dynamic. I can feel it. There's certain chemistry going on between these two. I can tell. Cal is like a second chance for Trilla. Not Trilla. Seer, and Seer is a second chance for Cal. I don't have to read the books to know that. I can just tell based on how things have developed. And that reminds me of how the original trilogy was. I didn't need to see the full flex of the relationship between Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan, and Luke. I know they've known each other for a long time based on how they talk. They talk in a way that they've been around for a very, very long time, like months, maybe even years. Like, Obi-Wan has been a watchful eye of Luke ever since he was a kid. He's a teenager by the time of A New Hope. Like when A New Hope comes around, he's like a teenager. So clearly they've been around they've known each other for a long ass fucking time. That's why it was so jarring in the sequel trilogy when Rey was crying because Han was killed by Kylo, and it's like, why are you crying? You barely knew him. Meanwhile, you can make the case for Luke and Obi-Wan based on how they talk and shit like that. It's like they're just referencing things. Jedi Fallen Order and Survive, they don't referencing. It feels more like a love letter. Like you could, like they did that with the prequel trilogy. You could tell based on how people talk. Obi-Wan and Anakin. There's certain details you can just tell that time has passed, and you can tell they've gone closer. Just certain things that they say, how they say it, and what they do later. It's like it's more authentic than people might believe. At least it seems that way. And well, yeah, it's like these games trust you enough to understand that well, things are developing. And while Cal may be in like a lot of trouble and he needs help and things like that, he's not completely fallen. At least that's how I perceived it. The Dagon Garen fight helped me illustrate that because, well, he's a pretty good parallel. I'll make a part 2 and talk about Bode and what I generally think about him and characters like him and what I think about Star Wars as a whole, like entirely, and why I think it is handled better than a lot of things. But that'll come later. Right now, I just think Cal is way more of a better Jedi than people give him credit for. Because of the context of the story and how I understand Jedi and different Jedi that came before him, after him, and things of that nature. So, yeah. That's it for now. And so I'll make the next video. Just so you know, if I have a thumbnail and things like that, this is my first time making a thumbnail. So if it looks weird, I'm not sorry. Like, I'm not going to act like I'm great. Like, I just use the auto-generated thumbnail shit that comes up on my channel. So, yeah, I think it's just too easy to claim that he's fallen and things like that. And, yeah, he's a way more... You get what I mean. I already said it 1,000 times, so, yeah, that's it.